Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get started in just a few moments. We have quite a few folks who have registered for today's community conversation. We thank you for those who have already joined us, but we're going to give each other just a few more moments to connect, to join. We'll talk to you soon. All right, I think we can get started. Thank you all for joining us today for our very first community conversation of 2026. We are so grateful to have you join us today. My name is Shannon Serrato. I'm the Director of Engagement, and it is wonderful to be in community with you all today. We're going to talk a lot about the work that we've got ahead. We've got a full year ahead as C2C enters our 5th year of existence. We can't wait to share that with you. But before we jump into that, I want to go over a bit of housekeeping. So, first, as always, this meeting is being recorded. You can see that at the top of your screen, but we make those recordings available on our YouTube pages and also on the C2C website under meetings and on community conversations. So folks can always access the conversations that we've had in the past and revisit the community conversations that you joined at any point. So just want to say that. Equity and accessibility are central to our work, and our meetings are available in the languages needed for the populations that we serve. So to that end, today's meeting is closed caption enabled. To turn on captions, you can click the 3 dots to the far right bottom of your screen and select captions. You can also select your preferred language by launching the CC button at the bottom of your screen. And we're also once again glad to have Spanish interpretation available for today's session. And a huge thank you to Julie Conde for joining us this afternoon. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Julie to give a few instructions on how to enable interpretation for today's session if you want to listen in Spanish.
Thank you, Shannon, y gracias, Shannon. Mira, lo que pasa es que se ofrecen servicios de la interpretación para la sesión de hoy en español. Para escuchar el programa en español, hay que seleccionar el icono de globo en la parte abajo de su pantalla que dice Interpretation, ahí en inglés. Luego seleccione su idioma español, Spanish. De ahí podrá escuchar todo el programa en español. Y muchas gracias y muy bienvenidos a todos ustedes. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Julie. So with that, while participants are muted for today's meeting, you are welcome to ask any questions that you may have at any point in the chat. But if you really want to make sure that you get your question answered, if there's something that just is piquing your curiosity, you heard something today and you're just really curious about it, drop it into the Q&A because we may not have time to dig through all of the chat. We may lose it in the fun that comes for our community conversation. So if there's something that you really want to know, really want to ask, please make sure to drop it into the Q&A so we can see that at the tail end of today's session. And finally, I want to once again highlight that we're utilizing the community guidelines that we created with the public to guide today's meeting. As always, we want to foster a brave and respectful shared space, and we appreciate your commitment to creating community with us. Next slide, please. So as always, we like to know about each other. We want to make sure that you know who Cradle-to-Career is and that we also get to hear from you. So a little bit about C2C. The California Cradle-to-Career Data System was named in state legislation to be California's source of actionable data and research on education, economic and health outcomes for individuals, families, and communities. C2C is envisioned to be one of the most inclusive data systems of its kind in the nation, and we employ a 3-pronged approach of community engagement that informs the development, interpretation, and awareness building of the data system. We are working with tools, platforms to support college transition and planning. And we have built an analytical data set on education and job outcomes. And you can learn all about that. We have a handy one-pager available at the bit.ly that you see on the screen and also dropped into the chat, C2C-1. 1_pager. So thank you, Angelique, for dropping that into the chat. Next slide, please. So this is where we get into the fun part, where we get to learn about who's with us today. We are super excited to be talking about C2C and all things Cradle-to-Career, but really, really excited to know who is talking to us in community with us today. So we would love for you to drop into the chat your name, your role, and where you're joining from today. While we give folks a moment, it always takes a while for this information to trickle in. I will share that I am, again, I'll model this. I'm Shannon Serrato. I'm the Director of Engagement here at C2C, and I'm joining from Oakland. Uh-oh. I'm hearing that the chat is disabled. I'm so sorry, guys. Oh no, this is super not good. I thought we just enabled the chat, so I apologize, everyone. Oh,
It
fixed.
should be fixed now.
Carrie, thank you for this beautiful news. Okay, let's get into this. You, Ryan, is right. Name, role, where are you joining from today? Thank you. That was going to make me sad because that's half of the point of the community conversation, being able to hear from you all. Okay, William Davis says Tulare County Office of Education. We've got Carrie Lemon, SVP Systems Unite LA. Ryan, our Director of Data Programs, is joining from San Diego. We've got Ivan Melchor, Riverside County Workforce Development, Paul Tuss, Alexis Takagi, Marnie, Cynthia Lopez, Montes. I'm so sorry, as always, we've got so many names coming in, but I do appreciate you dropping into the chat. We always go back and review the chat just to see where folks are joining from and what you all are up to. So continue to drop that in, but we're going to move on to the second question, which is also important. Is this your first community conversation, or have you been joining for a while now? I think we're in community conversation 13 or 14. I haven't done the math in a while, but there could be people in double digits. So is that you? If not, we are also very excited. If this is your first community conversation, we're grateful for you. And also, what are you most looking forward to today? Michael says this is your first community conversation, so thank you for joining us. I'm going to go back up. Laura says evaluation and learning manager at Faces, a nonprofit in San Francisco. I've heard of Faces. Marnie says first. Great. We've got a lot of first timers today, so thank you all. Mava says this is my first meeting, so thank you for attending. Great. Kate Visalia, first time. Kate, I know you. Thank you for joining us today. All right, last question. Let's move on. So this is one I'm gonna ask for your appreciation and pause as we not drop things into the chat immediately. I'm going to employ something that my colleague Ryan Estriada always says. We're going to get our typing fingers ready. We're going to have a chat waterfall. But if we can put the question on the screen, we're going to set our intentions for 2026. We're only 3 weeks in. We've got a lot of year ahead of us. And so I want folks to share in one word. What is your one word intention for 2026? And I'm asking you all to hold off so that we can drop them into the chat as a chatterfall, and then we can all receive the intentions together. So I'm going to give you all maybe 5 more seconds to think about your word. I'm going to get my word keyed up so I can type this for everyone. Okay. And 3, 2, 1, share your intentions in the chat. Ah, amazing. I knew this was going to work, but also I was going to punish myself. We see Cynthia, progress, Sharon, connection. That was also mine, Sharon. Alignment, radical faith, balance, Leslie, Carrie, prioritize, Mirtha, sustain, intention, realistic, intentionality, strategy, connection, hope. Amazing. Thank you all. I do appreciate that. And I could do this all day, but we've got a full community conversation ahead of us. So we're going to move along. But thank you all. I really do appreciate that. So again, we've got a full agenda, one kind of key topic, all C2C, but we're going to get into it. So we have quick C2C updates, or basically our whole entire community conversation is an update. So we're going to get through that pretty quickly. And then we're going to focus on the work ahead, focusing on C2C projects, the partnerships that we're working on, collaboration, as well as what's ahead in our 5th year at C2C. We have some time, as I mentioned in the past. We may not have time to get through this, so if you have any questions, please drop into the Q&A before we close, because we're going to have an interactive activity. So I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to get to any information that you all need. So we're going to move ahead. Next slide, please. I mentioned this already, but we've got a lot on our plate today, and a lot of the conversation that we will have today will be focused specifically on C2C updates. So gonna power through this, but I'm super excited to share that C2C's executive director will be an inaugural guest on California Competes Degrees of Change podcast. That will be coming out in a couple of weeks. California Competes is an advocacy organization here in California, and they're celebrating their 15 years. So we're super honored to have Marianne on as a guest, and we encourage you to follow us on social media, sign for email updates. We'll be sharing that podcast when it becomes available. But really, really grateful for that connection and really looking forward to that episode. So stay tuned for that. And then, as always, it's January, but we've already got a full docket ahead. So some of this we'll be talking about in passing, but just want to highlight that we've got a lot of upcoming events. We've got strategic planning coming down the pike on the 11th. This is a little bit out of order, maybe because I didn't want to talk about a community conversation right after a community conversation, but we will be holding our next community conversation in just 2 short weeks. We're going to be talking about our student experience report. So stay tuned for that. We will be having folks on from the California Education Lab. They'll be sharing highlights from students this upcoming year. And so don't want to steal that thunder. We'll be talking about it a little bit later on today, but just know that that's coming and you can register for that community conversation right now on the meetings pages. And then additionally, we've got our lesson plan challenge informational session. We'll be talking about the lesson plan challenge a little bit later on, but just know that if you're interested and want to learn more about the lesson plan challenge and want to submit a lesson plan, you can absolutely sign up for our informational session in the coming weeks so you can have some one-on-one conversations with staff. And then finally, our first governing board meeting of the year will kick off in February 25th. That'll be in person in Sacramento. But as always, we make the meetings available virtually. So if you're not able to join us in person at 400 R Street, you can absolutely join us virtually. We'd be glad to have you. So with that, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We've got a lot of things to talk about. So I'm going to hand it over to C2C's Director of Data Programs, Ryan Estriado, to kick off today's conversation about our projects and what we got working on. Ryan, over to you.
Thanks, Shannon. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be in community with everybody again. Happy New Year. Throughout the rest of our time together, Shannon and I will talk about a few different projects, but I'm going to start us out with two. And these are two student-related projects that we're working on. One that we're about to launch, Student Experience Audit for this year that Shannon just referenced. And then another exciting one, which is a dashboard that we are just getting started. So first, the student experience report. If you've been following along so far, you'll know that this is something that we do every year. And the goal of the student experience report is to do research and hear the stories and share the stories of students. We do that in a bunch of different ways. In this current round of the student experience report, we did surveys with over 7,000 students. But we also did interviews and we talked to 16 of those students specifically. And we're now preparing that report as we do every year to share with you. I would love if you could join us for the next community conversation in a couple of weeks. You can go onto our website and register now for that, and join us as we celebrate the release of this student experience report, but more importantly, come together in community to hear the stories of the students that we are trying our best to learn from. That's a student experience report. And then the second one is one that we're just getting started, which is the transfer dashboard. So if you've been following along so far, you'll know that last calendar year we launched our student pathway dashboard. And that was a story about what California high school graduates do after they graduate from high school. And the transfer dashboard that we are starting work on tells the next part of that story, which is to look specifically at students who are transferring from a 2-year college into a 4-year college. And so we looked very briefly at the story of those students in the student pathway dashboard, but now we are opening up a chapter of that story and looking really specifically and deeply at that experience transferring from a 2-year college to a 4-year college. We're really excited about this one. It's a big project. We know that it's a story that we have to be very careful and considerate in the way that we tell it because that experience has a lot of nuance. And so we are partnering with the UC Berkeley Policy Lab to help us put together focus groups as part of our initial design research to learn about these stories and to help us share about the way that we make this dashboard. So my request for you is, can you please be on the lookout on your email inboxes and also on our website because we're going to be sending invitations out soon to you folks and to the public to join us and the policy lab to do those focus groups and to participate in them. And as many people as we can get to those focus groups, I think the better that story will be because it has to be, we believe, has to be directly informed by the people who have actually lived this experience, whether it's us or folks like you in the community. Okay, so those are two projects, and let's now go to the next slide. Okay, so we have a lot of things happening here. I just talked about two things that are one thing that is rolling out and another thing that we're just starting. Um, but something that I've learned the longer and longer I'm here at Cradle-to-Career and get to work on these projects is we spend part of our time working on new stuff, like I just talked about, but we also increasingly are spending time on the products that we've released, maintaining them, improving them, and keeping up with the times, expanding them, etc. And so I have a couple of projects that I want to share with you here that have more to do with making sure that our current products are maintained and expanded. And the first one is a set of expansions that we're doing to the data system itself. So we very often talk about the dashboards and the flat files, the research files, and Query Builder. All of that stuff you can find on our website. But of course, all of the ingredients for those products come from the data system itself, the massive data system that where the data across a bunch of different life milestones for Californians are maintained. And so we are constantly looking at that and both maintaining it and expanding it. There are three expansions that we're focused on right now. The first is the preparation to receive for-profit college data and also to receive data about where students attend college out of state. And then our largest single expansion to date, which you've heard us talking about at our board meetings, which is the labor and workforce data. And so what all of these have in common is there is a big focus to make sure that we have all of the stories that we can tell about what students do after high school. Of course, in future years, we'll be focusing on other milestones. But right now, these three are where a lot of our time has been spent. And we're excited about that because once we bring that data in, it can then be used to expand current tools, maintain current tools, but then also develop new ones. And we're just excited to have a fuller and fuller story about Californians so that when anybody comes and visits the website, looks at the tools, they can see even the most nuanced and hopefully stories that were previously untold because the data had not been linked together to tell that. And then the second project that I want to highlight here that we are working on is the student pathway data story that I referenced earlier. Of course, that's launched and on the website already, but for any of our dashboards, part of the work is getting it out onto the website the first time, and then the rest of the work is maintaining it and updating it. And one of the things that we are focused on, in addition to the data set expansions, are adding a new year to the data as we aim to do every year. That way, the data remains fresh and up to date and changes as the stories of Californians change. Related to that, we have data walks in the lesson plan challenge, but I'll turn that over to Shannon to share more about that.
Thank you, Ryan. So Ryan mentioned this. Once we release the dashboard, what comes next is kind of revising and reiterating and building upon the tools. And so I just want to amplify that if you followed us at any point and you have been following us around the dashboard, you know that there has been kind of two components or three components if you really think about it. There's the launch, and then there's outreach, and then there's iteration. And so we are firmly in, for my team, the outreach phase. We really want to make sure that people know that the tool exists. That is really, really important. This is people's data, the people's data of California. And so we want to make sure that they know it exists and that they can access it. And then we also want to make sure that they can use the tools as best that they can. And so really thinking about uh, awareness building, that's a really important piece, but also advancing data literacy is another component of it. And my team is laser focused on those efforts this year. So we're going to be implementing a couple of different programs, launching a couple different projects this year. Some are already launched, but just want to highlight them for you all as we think about how we are using the student pathways data story as the foundation to really advance more data literacy or sharing more information just broadly with Californians. And so the first thing that I'm going to highlight are our upcoming data walks. You've heard about this if you followed any of our governing board or advisory board meetings, or if you are an advisory board member, because I see a lot of you on the line today. But you will know that we really want to make sure that we are engaging communities with their data, that we are talking to folks, that they are aware that the data system is here and that this tool shows their stories. This is amplifying their stories, what they are experiencing in the communities. And so we really want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to reach all the populations that we serve, which is really all of California. And so that's a tall task. But we're excited to do it. So this year, we're going to be collaborating with trusted messengers across the state of California, both virtually and in person, to organize interactive and in-depth engagements with communities focusing on data found in the Student Pathways data story. So the data walks will focus on specific data around specific regions and communities where we will enable attendees to participate in real-time analysis to generate insights and look at actionable information. So we are hoping to launch that in the coming weeks. You've heard this in the past. We're in conversation with many stakeholders about that. So super excited. The data walks will offer customized information tailored to the audiences, enabling attendees to see themselves in the data, interpret the data, and answer questions that matter most to them and their communities. So outputs that will come from those events will include artifacts to tell the story of how those communities have engaged their data, right? A large part of this is just putting things out into the world and then seeing how people are using them, right? Making sure that we are amplifying the stories, the insights that come from the data. We are the people that are creating this linkage, but we are not the end goal. We want to make sure that people see themselves in the data and they can take the data and run with it. So we're really excited about that. And then that work will kind of serve as a roadmap to help others replicate some of this work, make it easier for other folks to access information if they're not, power users and data users and those kinds of things. So we're super excited about that. We are in conversation with a couple of stakeholders, but this is an open invitation. It is January. And we would love to be across the state this year talking to you all about the Student Pathways dashboard and just data stories and data walks more broadly. And so if you have an event that C2C could participate in, if there's like synergy and like-minded behaviors, we would be open to hearing about them. We know that there's a couple events coming down the pike this year. A lot of our partners are having a lot of huge events this year, and so we hope to be in attendance there. But if you are just like, hey, it would be great if you can be in this area because we've got 200 kids who are super excited about this, we want to hear about that too. So this is not the end of this conversation. This is an open invitation, an open door to partner with us this year because we're super excited to get the word out, but we can't do it alone. So I'm going to now turn to our lesson plan challenge. That was not an elegant segue, but this is another bit of the data walk, or not the data walk, the student pathways work that we're doing because we want to make sure that we're reaching all types of populations. And so the lesson plan challenge, you've heard this before, but this is an invitation for teachers specifically to design a lesson plan challenge that demonstrates the creative and accessible ways that they can integrate the student pathways data story. It's really important that when we're thinking about educators, a huge portion of the work that lies within the dashboards, that they know how to use it. If they're using the dashboards, if they're using the data story to educate their students, we want to hear about the lessons that they've learned. We want to hear about the stories that they're telling. And so my colleague Belicia Smith has been working on a lesson plan challenge that will enable that work. And so challenge participants will be able to create a lesson plan using the lesson plan template that they will be able to show how they've used the Student Pathways data story in their work. We have winners. Everybody who participates will get a challenge badge. Everybody who participates will get a certificate. You will be LinkedIn certified as a Pathfinder from Cradle to Career. But most importantly, it's creating those relationships. It's building those bonds with folks across the state who are doing this work, that we are able to show that there are educators across the state who are using the dashboard in so many different cool and innovative ways. And we really want to be able to highlight that. And so our next informational session is coming up, as I mentioned, a few minutes ago on February 13th. This is at 4 p.m. We are making sure that we are being available to teachers. We know that it's really hard for them to join during the middle of the day on a Tuesday, right? So making sure that they are available is the goal. And so we will be having an informal session where people can come to us and ask questions. Before you submit your lesson plan, I really want to do this, or I really just need some technical assistance before I hit send. We are there for you. And so you can, again, register for the informational session that is live on the C2C site. You can access that via the lesson plan challenge page. And I think Angelique will be dropping that into the chat shortly, but we encourage you to join us there. If you have any questions, otherwise, you can always reach out to us at info@c2c.ca.gov. We'll be happy to answer any questions, but really appreciate your participation this year. Next slide, please. Okay, so I cannot speak enough. I cannot speak more highly about how excited I am for our upcoming work. Like, we've got so many cool things in the hopper for 2026. It's going to be great, but I would be remiss if I did not say that the work that we are doing is created through linked data. This is data that we get from verified partners all across the state, and we are creating stories, we are creating data insights that are never before seen. And that's really where the magic lies, being able to show that there is so much beyond just your siloed bit of information if you're able to just create a broader story. And so there's a lot of work that the data programs team in particular is working on, partnerships and collaboration that have been enabled with this work. And so I set the preamble. I'm going to talk about these things because I'm excited about it, but really I'm going to hand it over to Ryan to share more about what his team is doing, because they are doing the heavy lifting here, but really excited to share that with you. So I'm going to hand it again over to Ryan to talk about what's coming down the pike.
Thanks, Shannon. Yes, so partnerships and collaboration is a big part of the way that we get our work done, and I think it's really important to share it here because earlier I talked about the dashboards and the expansions in the student experience report, and those are projects that are, I think, easier for us in a community to see because you can go to the website and you can use the dashboard or use the flat files. But it's also important for us to share the stories of stuff that is a little bit harder to see because they are the result of conversations with our data partners and a lot of ideation and creativity about how we can use the Cradle to Career linked data system to support the ongoing projects that our partners are working on. And so we do a lot of work to try and make that possible. Ultimately, these are the projects of our partners. And so we really enjoy getting to see them be successful, but we're also proud to be a part of doing things that before the data system existed was not possible to do. So I'd like to give a couple of examples here. I think we're on the next slide now. The first is the CalKids integration. So if you've heard us talk about use this term CalKids, I'll just explain this briefly, is that there is the state, California state government provides some money for students to go to college, and it lives in an account for the students to access. And the problem that the Scholarship Investment Board, SIB, our partners, is aiming to solve is to get more of the word out to students who may have funds from CalKids but aren't aware of it, and of course then aren't using it as they apply for college and pay for their tuition. And so it turns out that with the SIB data and other linked data in the system, that we can help with that by creating reports that we get out to the higher education institutions that they can then use to contact students who have a high likelihood that they have some money that hasn't been used yet for college tuition. And so when you hear us talk about the CalKids integration, That is us working with our partners at SIB, a really important partner in the California Department of Education, and then currently our community colleges to create reports for the first time that the community colleges can use to reach those students. And so we really hope that more kids can get to the money that they're entitled to through those reports. That's one example. And then the second is with our partners over at the California Student Aid Commission, Data Reports. This is CSAC. And our work here is partnering with CSAC to help them build their institutional level data dashboards relating to financial aid that they are working on this year. And again, this is their project, and we're excited for them to build and launch it. But we're also excited and proud to be able to help them by putting together data that hasn't been linked before, and then sharing it with them so that the data stories that they build and share with the public are the most informed that they can be and tell the stories that are the most authentic that they can be. So those are two projects that we're really excited about that are a little bit harder to see on the website, but we thought was important to share with you because it's a big part of the way we are trying to extract the most value that we can out of the data that the California public has shared with us. Next slide, please. Okay. And then I'll share one more here before I turn it over to Shannon. This is one that I referenced earlier. This is a partnership that is a work in progress. It is a larger and longer term partnership with our friends over at the Labor and Workforce Department. This is four specific agencies that we are working with. And the first step is what I mentioned earlier, which is the single biggest expansion of data and in the data system yet, focusing this time on workforce. But of course, once we receive that data, we need to make the best use of it so that the public receives the benefit from all of that linked data. And we are now in the middle of conversations about the best use cases for that data, including research, reporting, and things of that nature. And so I'm sharing that here because I wanted to make sure that we can all begin to keep our eyes open for what's coming next with labor and workforce related projects as soon as we turn the corner on receiving that data. So more to come on that in other community conversations, but also in future board meetings. So those are three workforce data, the CalKids reporting, and then the CSAC reporting. And now I'll turn it over to Shannon to share about other partnerships.
Yeah, so just to highlight a lot of the partnerships and the work that we do, obviously, are centered in data. But I do want to highlight a last partnership, which I would be remiss if I did not share because I think so many of you all are fellows now or were fellows in the past. We are super, super excited to have representation from C2C as part of the California Education Policy Fellowship Program. Our colleague Eric Flores, our Director of Legislative Affairs, is a fellow this year. And so he is a fellow on with so many other like-minded education experts. And so we are just excited to be a part of the program. I, haven't been at C2C forever. I've been in other places, and this fellowship is really special. And I know a lot of people have come through it and done great things. And so we're super, super excited to be a part of it this year. And glad to be in collaboration with you all. I know that there's a lot of you on the line today, so just give you a shout out for the work that you all are doing, and glad to be a part of it. So thank you. So with that, we're going to move on. We have been talking about C2C small. We look narrowly at our projects and the work ahead, and we work a little bit more broadly, focusing on the partnership collaboration that come with working with so many other individuals. Now we're going to pull out a little bit broader, maybe for a 50,000-foot look at some of our work ahead as we think about our anniversary and the strategic planning that comes with our milestone year. So I'm very excited to announce, if you have not heard already, that we are turning 5. We will be 5 years old. We will be celebrating our 5th anniversary this year. C2C was signed into law in July of 2021. And so we will be celebrating our first big milestone, our 5th year as an entity this year. And so we've got a lot to celebrate. We've got a lot to talk about, and we've got a lot of great projects and work ahead. We'll be holding in-person and virtual events across the state, where we'll be highlighting really cool things. We're going to be focusing on things like a community day-to-day, which will bring together partners, our advisory board members, governing board members, advocacy groups, people who are just really, really excited to talk about data, bring them all into one room to celebrate all the work that we've been able to enable together, and to really just celebrate the data insights and the power that come from this LinkedIn work and all of the work that we've done together. So I'm super excited about that. And we'll also always be launching new projects, products, and partnerships. You'll see a new 5th year logo. You may be seeing some t-shirts that you can buy. If you are a C2C fan, I'll be buying one because maybe that's just me, but I'm excited about it. And we'll be also just launching some multimedia campaigns. We'll be having videos and a lot of social media campaigns where we're kind of doing some behind the scenes work, sharing the stories of folks you don't hear about as often. And so we'll be highlighting the work of the C2C staff. I say this a lot, we're small but mighty, but we are a team of really, really passionate folks. And so I'm excited for you to hear those stories. And so looking forward to celebrating with you. Again, follow us. We will be bringing you along for every part of it. And we will not be doing this alone. So this will not be the last time you hear about it, but we are just super, super excited to share what's ahead for year 5. Next slide, please. Okay, so this brings us to the last topic of the day, but also one of the most important topics of the day, and also our very first interactive activity. I do not count the chat stuff because it was kind of broken at the beginning. And also, I didn't make you go to a different platform. So, does that really count? I don't think so. But before that, I will just say that we are excited to be talking about this with you all because C2C is statutorily required to adopt a strategic plan. That is the requirement of the board. That's something that we have to do. They have to revise the plan. But what is super, super exciting is that user-centered design is also a key component of the work. And so while the task ultimately lies with C2C's governing board and the strategic planning committee, we want to hear from you all about how you think and talk about C2C. We want to make sure that we're not creating things in a vacuum. And I shared 2 examples on the screen because this may be your first community conversation and you don't believe me, but I will just give 2 high-level examples of what we've done together to kind of refresh our memory before we jump into today's activity. So the first thing you'll see at the top of our screen, or the slide, is that there is a filter there, and I highlighted the legislative district. It may not be clear, but we have 2 filters at the top of our student pathways dashboard that help folks drill down and filter information that is relevant by their school district and also legislative district. Originally, we'd only intended to have a filter for the school districts, but we had community conversations. We were in community with policymakers and their legislative staff, and they shared with us that this would be a game changer for them as far as something that they would have actionable information for their constituents. And so Ryan and his team, Dan, data infrastructure team, they went back and kind of rejiggered things to make sure that we could deliver this for the public. It was not a small feat, I want to say that, but we were super glad to be able to deliver that to the public. And that is something that you can see that was delivered last year as we launched our Student Pathways dashboard. And that came directly from feedback from the community. So we are grateful for that. And then a more light, fun one, I share this all the time on this screen. My job when I first joined was to create the visual identity for C2C. I joke that the logo that you see, the literal C2C, was probably done in Word, no shade to whoever did this, but we wanted to make sure that we were creating a logo, a visual identity that really reflected how people thought about California. And so we did a lot of pressure testing. We had surveys, we did live polls, we shared things, people, upvoted, downvoted, and we got to where we are now, where we have this beautiful logo that really embodies all of C2C. But it was not a one-to-one. It was it wasn't a linear process. There was a lot of ebbs and flows as we thought about the work and how we all engage with you all. So I am very excited about what we've created together. And I say that as we head into the next piece, as we think about our strategic plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is where we put user-centered design into practice. We don't build anything alone. We built this with all of Californians, and we're going to do this together. So again, The governing board will be drafting our strategic plan. That will not lie in the work of the office, but what will lie in the work of the office is making sure that they know that these are the things that really resonate with the public when you're thinking about, when you're talking about C2C's work. So I'm gonna, just a second, try to share my screen. I'm gonna take over sharing your screen, but before that, I want you all to capture the poll everywhere logo. We'll see if you can. One second. Angelique, can you drop in the link to pollev.com/ Cradle to Career California 654? Gonna give people a few seconds to join. You can access it using the screen. Click here. But what we're gonna do next is kind of do some polling. We want to make sure that the strategic plan that is ultimately delivered to the public is free of jargon, that is written in plain language, and it's a actual document that people understand. And so there are phrases that we use all the time here at Cradle to Career. There's words that we use interchangeably all the time, but do they land with you all? Is that how you talk about Cradle to Career? Is that how you think about our work? And so we're going to have two different kinds of activities. We're going to have one where we are looking at different types of words and do they evoke certain feelings for you? Do they evoke certain emotions? We want you to rank order them. So that's going to be the first one. And then we're going to have a free standing session where we kind of have thoughts around what words resonate with you when thinking about Cradle to Career. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now that you've all been able to access the first one. We've got three sets of phrases, three sets of concepts that I want you all to be able to think through. But first, we're going to focus on equity because that's the one on your screen. And I will say that equity is embedded into every part of C2C's work that is written into C2C statute. We care very deeply about making sure that the tools that we are creating are available for everyone in California. But we also know that some words just don't resonate, or they also just don't make people feel like this is something that matters to them. And so I'm going to pause just to see, because I'm seeing a chat and I want to make sure that people can access this. Okay, I'm seeing things come in. So Carrie, I do apologize. Maybe you're having trouble accessing the link, but it looks like other people are doing it. While we are giving folks a couple of minutes to join us, you will see that there are three words where you can click in and there's a triangle where you can up or down move. So basically what I would like is for folks to be able to share what resonates the most with you. So the words that resonate the most with you, rise to the top. Maybe less, rise to the bottom. So when thinking about equity, when you're talking about making data accessible, making it equitable for people in the state, for Californians, what resonates with you? Is it the phrase equity? Is it fairness? Is it for all Californians? And I'm seeing folks respond. And so I appreciate that. I'm going to give you a couple more seconds because it's a little bit clunky to get into the system at first, but you can access it on your phone just as much as you can access it on the C2C site. So if you look, there is a QR code here that I will expand just to help folks. But can you give folks a couple more seconds to think about equity, fairness for all Californians? Does this resonate with you? And if not, what words do you use? What's something that you would say to your folks at home when you're talking about Cradle-to-Career? I just joined the community conversation for Cradle-to-Career. This is what they do. They focus on XYZ. What do you say? Let us know. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one because time is not on my side today. Okay, the next one, data insights. We talk all the time about linking data, providing insights to this information, actionable information. But is that how you talk about it? What words resonate with you? So we've got insights, information, outcomes. When you talk about the work that's done, how we're accessing this information, what is it that you talk about? So it looks like we've got data insights, information, and data insights are fighting. I'm going to give you a couple more seconds because making sure that people have time to accurately reflect their vote, that'll be helpful. Again, if data insights, outcomes, or information is not helpful to you, if there are other words that you would use that are not on your screen, let us know, drop them into the chat. Because ultimately what we want to do is be able to deliver a document, deliver something that really resonates with people in California. And if it's not those, let us know. Okay. And then the last one that we want to talk about are health and social services. We are embarking on this work. This is something that's very important to us. This is thinking about the work that C2C does, it's not just about jobs and education, it's also thinking about health outcomes. And so, what words resonate with you when thinking about this work? Is it social services? Is it health? Is it well being? Or is it a fourth thing, something that is not on your screen but would also be helpful? So, thinking about when you're talking to people at home, when you're not getting into jargon, we're just thinking about this is the work, what resonates? Looks like well-being is rising to the top. So thank you for that. I'm going to give a couple more seconds in case you haven't had a chance to vote, because we're going to move on to a different type of activity now. So thank you. I do appreciate that quick pulse check as we think about how you all are talking about C2C. Okay. And lastly, just so that we know, what words or phrases resonate with you when thinking about Cradle to Career? If you're talking about the work, if you're talking about what we do, what is it that you say? What is it that you think about when you think about Cradle to Career? Is it data? Is it linked data? Is it verified data? Trust, neutral, linkages, Californians? What do you think about? Data, forward thinking, actionable, legislation, longevity. Nice. Okay, I'm gonna give you all a couple of seconds as we get the word cloud going, and I'm just gonna watch. This is kind of cool to see. So data is definitely in the lead, which makes sense. I'm seeing holistic, story, lifespan, stronger, stories again, openness, continuum, longevity, experience, Californians, insights, health, connected. All right. We'll keep those coming because this also will help inform how we think about this. If it is that, we talked about this many, many years ago, but as we were thinking about the Cradle to Career name, what is it that resonates? Data system actually makes sense when you think about the word, but we didn't know that until we talked to you all. And so this is just a nice, helpful gut check as we think about entering this work for 2026, making sure that we are talking to, listening, and hearing from Californians in every step of the way. So appreciate this. Keep it coming. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I want to make sure that we get to this last bit, which is where we hear from you all. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to turn here. And I'm going to share my screen now. Nope, that's not it. That's sharing. I want a slideshow. Q&A. Last bit. You can drop it into the chat. You can drop it into the Q&A. Do you have any questions for Cradle to Career? Any curiosities? Anything that came out that you would like to learn more of? I do want to amplify that we did get some additional questions that I answered into the chat. So Ruben asked a little while ago, are there already existing trainings or YouTube platform for beginners to advanced users? I will say that I shared our tutorials for the Student Pathways dashboard. I know that's very specific to Student Pathways. And so if you're looking for more tutorials, Ruben, please let me know. I just wanted to amplify that we have a series of 6 tutorials on our Student Pathways dashboard that are also available in Spanish in case you are curious about that. So wanted to amplify that. And then also I dropped my information into the chat in case you want to reach out. So thank you for that. And then Jessica asked, is this being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded. And again, we will post this on the YouTube page as well as on meetings and in community conversations. Probably by the end of today, definitely, if not by tomorrow. So if that is exciting to you, you can see that coming soon. And then let's see. Adam, you have a specific question. I see that, so we will follow up. But if there are any more questions that we have not gotten to, I'm going to look. It's hard to navigate between the chat and the Q&A, but let me know. And then Laura, I see your question about timeline. We can follow up with you about that. But just know there's a question in here about early learning and care. And I know that that's something that people care very deeply about. So just following up about that. If you would like to learn more about the timeline, as always, we will let you know. But as we mentioned in the past, we have a work plan that we are marching towards. And this year, we are focused on the transfer dashboard and all the things that we've talked about, but there is no cradle without early learning and care. So just want to acknowledge that and appreciate the question. Is there any other questions before we get into today? Thank you, Laura. We appreciate you joining. Kate says, are there any C2C partnerships with other pros who offer training in data literacy? I would be open to learning more of that myself. I will say I've shared this with other folks, but we have been in conversations with data literacy experts across the state, not the state, the country this year, because we really want to learn from others who are doing it well. So we've been in conversations with folks in Indiana. I've talked to folks in Connecticut. These people are doing things that are truly, truly amazing and revolutionary. And I want to bring that here to Cradle to Career. So I'm excited about that. But if there are other folks that we should be connecting with, let me know. I want to make sure that we are talking to everybody about how to deliver the best programming for you all. So just let me know if you have any ideas. We'd be grateful for that. But yeah, we are doing the work. We are doing the work, but also just glad to hear more. I'm gonna stop sharing my, nope, not gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm the screen share now. I forget that part. I was like, I'm gonna look at your faces, but this is a webinar. So this is the downside of today. I love to hear from you, but I would love to see your faces. And so maybe next time we can have a mega meeting where we have 200 people on the line. I don't know. All right, any other questions? Any final thoughts for today? All right, well, with that, we will skip ahead to the end. We appreciate you joining us for our first community conversation of the year. We are doing a lot, but we cannot do it without you. And this conversation just reinforces that we cannot go it alone. And we're super, super excited to do this work in community with all of Californians this year. So thank you for that. But if you have any questions, as always, I drop my personal contact information into the Q&A. But if you want to reach out to us more broadly, you can email us at info@c2c.ca.gov. This is the plug. Please sign up for our newsletters if you want to hear from us. We've got a lot coming down the pike, as I've shared, and we do a lot of that information sharing, not only here in community conversations, but in email and social media. So you can follow us there. You can sign up on ways to get involved. And my final plug, my final pitch, we are again so lucky to have Julie here today. We offer Spanish interpretation for all of our public meetings, and we have ASL for our governing board meetings, but we want to make sure that we are being as accessible and equitable for everyone as possible. So we have on this screen a link, a QR code to our language access survey. Please take that if you have not taken that already. This will help just give us more information about who is listening, who's joining us for these community conversations. And if we need to offer more resources to have more people on the line, we will do so. So again, if it's that we need to have Chinese interpretation, Mandarin, Cantonese, great. We have mom here in Oakland, right? Like there are different languages for the populations that you serve. So please take that survey. If you speak a different language at home, let us know. If you're working with folks who speak different languages, answer on their behalf. We want to make sure that we are reaching as many people as possible. So with that, we appreciate this. And I'm looking now in the chat. Thank you, Engine. Yes, Minnesota's data integration. We also talked to Minnesota. There's a lot of good folks out there, and we appreciate the thoughts. So please continue, keep those coming. Let us know. But with that, I do appreciate you all today. I hope you have a good rest of your Tuesday, a good start to your week. I hope this was a nice break for you all. And happy 2026. We've got so much ahead of us, and we look forward to it. So thank you for joining us. We hope